Hey, hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and on today's video I want to talk about the NVIDIA Game Optimizer. And the reason I want to talk about this is because one of the biggest complaints I always hear about PC gaming, for those that are new or uninitiated in the magic of it, is the fact that they don't want to think when it comes to just setting up the game. They just want to fire up the game and play. And well, I can't say that PC is like that, but there are lots of ways to make your life easier if that's what you want. So one of the things I have never tested, because I like to tinker with the games myself and find what the sensible approach, is the NVIDIA Game Optimizer. Anyone with an NVIDIA card, and I think even AMD, I have to check that, has an option to, check on the games that have installed. This is done on a NVIDIA has to add the profiles, okay? But most games are supported, especially if they are like big games. So what this software does, and I'm using the latest NVIDIA app, okay, that you can have, or you can use the G4 Experience, which also has the same software, the same facility, is that it scans for the games that you have installed, and then it gives you options or ways to optimize the game according to your target or what is that you want to achieve with the game and resolution, so you don't have to even think about what you need to do with the game. So one of the things that you need to do for this to work, as you can see here, these green ones are games that have been optimized already. And the ones that don't have that is because they have some settings that are, belong only, is whatever you set. It's not what NVIDIA is recommending for your hardware. So I have been tinkering with this for my Spanish channel, so this is why you see so many videos or so many games already optimized using this. So however, I wanted to bring this video also to my English channel because I think it's quite interesting. So how does this work? Well, once you have your games, okay, scan, you will have a list of the supported games in here in the graphics part of the NVIDIA app. So you go here and you have all these games. So for example, let's say The Last of Us Part 1. So what is this here? You have some options. The first here you have optimize, then you have here resolution, and that's very important because the options that the software will choose will vary depending on the resolution you're choosing. That's quite interesting because it means that it's not a generic sort of option, but it's actually catered to whatever it is that you want. Okay, so when you have, like, I use 1440p for many games, okay, you have this a little tab here. So as you move it, as you can see, some options are going to be changing on the preview value custom, okay, to different options depending on what it is that you're choosing, because you can go for performance or for quality, okay, more quality. As you can see, if we move this to let me see if there is an option here for I can't, because this game depends on the resolution of the desktop, so you cannot choose higher than my desktop resolution, at least at the moment, which is 1440p. But let me go, for example, to Horizon Forbidden West, and you can see here I can choose 4K, and for some reason it's telling me that's what they recommend, okay? But anyway, you can see the options here, but if we go lower on resolution, you can see when we move this that the options are different, okay? That's important because you need to update this so it chooses the right options. Anyway, once you have this running, okay, the software, one important thing is that the game needs to run at least once, and that's for the game to create the graphics configuration file that NVIDIA is going to be using to do the optimization. So if you haven't run the game, it will tell you here that the game hasn't been run once, and so on, you cannot optimize the game. So that's one of the prerequisites for this to work. The game needs to run at least one. You don't need to get even in-game or anything, just start the game, let it go to the menu, and then get out, and that's what it's going to be, okay? So once the options are there and everything is set up, you can see here, okay, the options that I have for this game. So let me go back to 4K just to make it a little bit more obvious. what is going to happen. So you see how the recommended changes, and now it's here, but you want more performance or you want more quality, you can move this. So let's leave it at recommended, because I think recommended is trying to target 60 FPS with whatever resolution you have. And as you can see here, the NVIDIA optimizer is, for example, telling you what is going to be. So you see that here is saying ambient occlusion right now is active, but they are telling you that when you optimize the game, it's going to be off. Anti-alias, this is set in NVIDIA DLLA, which I don't think is going to happen, or I'm not sure. This is weird, but okay, so you have here clouds quality, and right now are on very high, and it's going to be set on low. The display mode is borderless, but we are going to full screen, okay? And the reason for that is probably because my desktop is a 1440p, so you go borderless, you cannot go over the desktop resolution, and we have here 4K. And so you can see dynamic resolution scaling right now is on, but we are going to set it at off and so on. We can keep going. And now here is the interesting part, because that's why I said that this anti-alias probably is not real. It's just the fact that we are using an upscale method. In this case, you see is NVIDIA DLSS, and right now it's a performance mode, and it thinks it have to keep it a performance mode, and the VSync goes from on to off. And that's probably because somehow here there is NVIDIA frame generation active, so you can see here. So as you can see, this is showing you the things that it considers that is going to be the best value. So when we click optimize, as you can see now, it's telling me it's green because it's using the NVIDIA optimized settings for this. So in this video, what I'm going to be doing is checking some games like running at 4040p ultra, like just to see what the performance of the game at that resolution using an RTX 4060, and then I'm going to run the game after optimizing it with NVIDIA to see if the values are sensible, if they are good values, if it reaches the target that it says that it's going to be. And I'm using an RTX 4060 because I think, you know, there is a little bit of work that it has to do. If you had a 4090, probably there is not much leeway because, you know, it can set most things to ultra just using the less performance and frame generation and things like that, and so there is not going to be much work. But I think it has to, you know, do sensible selections while using lower spec GPUs. In this case, I'm using an RTX 4060. Of course, I could have used a 2060 or so on, but that's the one that was installed at the time of doing this video, and I wanted to see how good it was. I'm using frame generation and all of those options. So that's what we're going to be checking in this video. But before that, I have to remind you that 80% of you that watches my video are not subscribed to the channel. And come on, guys, I think I deserve your subscription. I do my videos, I think they are very informational, and, you know, I try to be, you know, the guy next door that helps everyone. And, you know, please, all I'm asking is for that subscription, that like, and that's all. It's completely free. Do it now, because then you forget. Okay, having said that, let's see at the results. So the first game I'm going to play is Cyberpunk 2077. I'm setting it up at 1440p Ultra RT preset just then check how the optimizer works. As you can see, we are close to 60, but not actually there. In fact, we get as low as 45 sometimes. So I has to be honest, I was expecting a worse performance just out of the box, but this experience was okay-ish. But of course, it's not the 60 FPS that we will like to. So, you know, I'm just testing here, just showing you a little bit around how it goes. And as you can see, it's not as perfect or as good as I think it could be. So let's say you are someone who doesn't know what to change or what to do to get to those 60 FPS. So this is when the NVIDIA optimizer comes. As you can see here, we can move the slider towards quality or toward performance. We have the resolution scaling. And well, that's what we have here. Remember that to have this screen, you have to start the game at least once, okay? The slider here, as I said, you can move it. There you go. We can see the values here that the game thinks. So let's just move. As you can see, those are the values that are there and the new values. So the new values are going to be shown like in a more clear, like wide scale. So RTX DLSS is going to balance. Frame generation is going to be activated. Reconstruction is also going to be activated in this case. Ray trace lighting goes from ultra to completely off, which I think is a little bit too much, but well, that's what NVIDIA thinks. But instead, phase reflections are going from ultra to psycho. So that's kind of weird. And volumetric cloud quality is completely off. So those are the options that NVIDIA considers that I should use in order to get the best performance with the hardware and resolution that I chose. So, and this is the results. As you can see here, we are actually getting what NVIDIA is promising, a game that looks quite good at more than 60 FPS. Curiously enough, this is with DLSS frame generation active, which means that it has to be internally doing around 40 to 45 FPS, and depending on the situation. So it seems that some of the things we did probably cause it was weird because we were close to 60, so you would think that some of them just lowering them, but well, this is the result. So clearly NVIDIA know what it's doing, because maybe it will have taken us a lot more testing in order to get to 60, at least a person who doesn't know. Now, another game I try in this case, RT Ultra, is Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. This is a game that I think is one of the most beautiful games or render engine there is, and I always like to test it. You may not like the game, but honestly this game looks gorgeous in terms of technology, so I have always to test it, of course. And in this case we're going to be testing here with NVIDIA Optimizer. This is just the 1440p Ultra preset that I'm testing first, just to show you the performance, how it goes, and then to be able to check what NVIDIA thinks that it needs to change in order for us to get to that recommended level that they want. I guess recommended level is trying to get at least 60 FPS while still looking as good as possible. So when we go to the NVIDIA Optimizer, you can see we're already there, okay? So there are the preview values, the current value. Remember, you have to run the game at least once in order for this to work, okay? You need the game running. So the first thing we are going to try to do is select the resolution, okay? Here is a at 4K. We are going to lower to 1440p, and we move this because otherwise the value don't update. So when we move it again, you see they updated. So what you can see there, what is changing is changing diffuse reflections to medium. So as you can see, it's not lowering the BVH quality or the destruction quality, but it's lowering the extra streaming distance, the object detail, the scaling is going from ultra quality to balance, the shadow quality down there, yeah, here is going to from high to medium, the specular reflection from very high to medium. Let's see what else is there. So it says temporal anti-alias NVIDIA DLSS, which score we're using now. So as you can see, it's going from that to that because we are using it. And that's all the changing things you need to do. So all you need to do now is press optimize here, and then you can just start your game from the same app. You see, up and play. So now you can see the changes it did, and you can see it clearly went from going at around 30 FPS. In this case, we don't have frame generation, to at 60 FPS. And there was a little bit of a down there, but normally it will take you above 60 FPS most of the time. That was the only time I was able to see under 60, but I can say that it will in every situation be. But I think it's much playable. I think the quality is still quite fantastic, quite good. Yeah, as you can see, I'm seeing some issues with some VRAM or memory streaming problems there. Yeah, that's but I think this is not due to the selection that NVIDIA did. It's probably some RAM issues that I ran with this game. But anyway, going with this Starfield now, as you can see, this is a game that has a completely different engine. I tested all different engines for this video. And this is a tricky game because it's very CPU dependent, and this area is quite tricky because here is going like a 40 FPS, but then you can go to like a inside or a room, and then it goes like to 80 FPS. So I wanted to see just what decisions NVIDIA will make in here. All right. So as you can see, the game is running between 45 and 50 FPS, which I will say is playable, more than playable for most, but many people want to get at least those 60 FPS stable. And here you can see that we are almost there, but we never actually hit those 60 FPS. So when we go to the NVIDIA Optimizer, you can see here all the options, all the preview, everything that is waiting. So as always, you have to select the resolution, but in this case there is no the resolution here is 1440p, but you cannot select over that because you cannot get 4K because the game is dependent on your desktop resolution. That happens with some games. So if you wanted to change to 4K, you won't be able to do it there unless the game was at 4K, because otherwise you will have to go to window mode. Okay, now we move this just to be sure that the settings are being applied or being selected, and you can see all the changes that we are going to be getting. Like we're going to let's see, contact shadows, I think is one of the changes, frame generation, grass quantity, GTAO quality, indirect lighting, reflections. For some reason the current value before says that like off or something and it goes too high. Then we have the render resolution. Before apparently was 75%. As I said, I was using the preset, okay, and now it goes to 100, so it's full resolution. We got DLSS mode automatic, but it says there, but actually it's going to be changing it to some value, I suppose. I'm not quite sure if it's using dynamic resolution scaling, but anyway, these are the options that the NVIDIA thinks that we have to change. So even the volumetric lighting is ultra too high, so all we need to do is press optimize and then go to play. You don't need to launch the game from here, it's just more easy. And now you can see that we almost got to 60 FPS. And I say almost because now we hit 60 FPS, which we didn't, but we don't go as low as 45. So the games can go over, as you can see in this area. It's kind of the same that was before, but a little bit better. So the changes are, you know, because before we were using 75% scaling. Remember that was before, because that's the ultra preset automatically chooses that. But I think this preset with the changes NVIDIA did is more stable and closer to 60 FPS all the time. So even though that this one is also using some sort of scaling, I think it's a much stable that the previous ultra preset was. So I think this is also a good balance of selection. Now here with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, this is a game that features very RT options, and when we activate everything, you can see that the game is running even under 30 FPS. As you can see here, the game is not running very well. I wouldn't call this playable. Well, you know, you can play like this. I have played worse, but I wouldn't recommend it to just play like this, because it's kind of hard to even try to do anything in the game, to be honest. You try to, you know, find your way around or so on, and it gets a little bit hectic because you can have that fluidity that you need for the fight. But yeah, you cannot have this game with all ray tracing and ultra settings and everything active, because the game will just run very badly. So I think we need again NVIDIA to the rescue, and let's see what it chooses to do. I have to say that this was very weird. Ambient occlusion appears off, and I suppose or want to think that the reason for that is because it was using ray tracing, but now are going to use XeGTO. We didn't have the frame generation, as you can see, it's off. DLSS frame generation is now going to be active. We are going for level of detail from very high to ultra in this case. You see, I see frame generation is going to be active. We have the ambient occlusion. What else we have here? Very high ultra. Okay, let me see. Okay, the RTA object range is 1. I don't know why it lowers that, because it turned off every single ray tracing option that the game has. I'm not sure if it's being over aggressive or not, or if they will actually tank our frame rate. So it's upping anisotropic filtering, then the texture quality to auto. We are activating DLSS on balance mode. So as you can see, it seems to be very aggressive, but sometimes you have to be to get those 60 FPS, because we are going from 20 something now to like 90 to 70, but thanks to frame generation. So I'm going to think, but you see, even 66, that if you activate any ray tracing option, this game will probably go under 60 FPS. And even though it seems a little over aggressive, probably is not, and that's what is needed in order to maintain a stable or over 60 FPS frame rate. So that's an interesting choice, and I wonder if I went to 1080p, if the game had allowed me to or NVIDIA optimizer to have any ray tracing option, because that would have been interesting. So sometimes we think, oh well, you know, I could activate ray tracing. Well, you can if you experiment yourself, but remember, the idea here is for people to be able to not think about the settings, okay? So I was getting beaten up here. I forgot already the controls. I finished this game a while ago and I didn't remember what the buttons did, so they were beating me. Anyway, in this game I'm using 1440p cinematic settings without a ray tracing, because ray tracing in this game is absolutely heavy. For the 4060, at least not a 1440p, so I just didn't want to go there. And as you can see, well, we have a 30 FPS experience. Okay, we can have that. That's what you want. If you want to play at 30 FPS, yeah, you can totally do that using just the cinematic settings at 1440p. But I know that's not what most people want, and that's why we're using NVIDIA Optimizer for this game. Once again, we are going to be, you know, selecting what we want to do. Okay, so here we go again. And as you can see, we have all these value. Many of them, some of them are going to low, like global illumination in this case, and TLS is going to very high. Then we have hair quality, pause effect, reflection, and now we are activating RTX DLSS and putting it on balance. Also, we are activating frame generation. When I say we, well, I'm referring to the NVIDIA Optimizer, but you know what I mean. Shadow quality, go from cinematic to medium, and texture, vegetation, view, and visual effect go to very high. So, okay, that's what NVIDIA thinks I need in order to have the recommended or optimized settings here. So we press optimize, and then we just go and play. And oh, voila, look at that, more than 60 FPS. So sometimes you wonder if, you know, that it was being a little bit over aggressive, okay? But you have to think about this. If this game is running at 90 FPS with frame generation, it means that internal is running at half of it, okay? So without frame generation, of course, you gain some, but probably not enough to go to 60 FPS. So the question is, should you have been more aggressive with some options or lower other things? Maybe, but you know, this is what NVIDIA thinks is good, and I think it's doing quite a pretty good job. There are some things that I think it went a little bit over the board. Like, I think Ultra, even though the game said balance DLSS, I think it's going like performance mode maybe, because I see a little bit of flickering. But well, now I wanted to go overboard, and I said, okay, recommend something to play at 4K with the 4060. So you can see here what I mean, right? So we are going now at so you see what I mean. It's saying that the Ultra RTX DLSS was ultra performance when it was supposed to be balanced. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, or if it's reading the parameters wrong. I'm not quite sure, honest, what was the issue, because when we go, we can keep seeing ultra performance. So that's a kind of weird thing. But anyway, here we are. These are the options that it says that I have right now, and the options that it's going to be using as the value recommended for 4K gaming. So this is like a lots of changes. Obviously, lots of things going low, lots of DLSS, lots of frame generation. But well, that's what we want, or that's what's needed to play at 60 FPS. And you can see we already achieved our target, around 65 to 70 FPS with a 4060 on Black Myth Wukong. I don't know, in some area, I think that there are situations where the NVIDIA will tell you that the game will simply not run correctly at that configuration. I think I saw one game trying to go to 4K, and it says to me like, no, this is not good. This is not going to be able to run the game at this quality. So as you can see, it will tell you, but at 4K in this game, it says, yeah, I can make it happen, and I did make it happen. So I think that's quite a good result. I'm not sure what you think about it, but I'm quite surprised about the results of the NVIDIA Game Optimizer. Okay, everyone, so as you saw, I think the NVIDIA's Game Optimizer actually runs pretty well, better than I was expecting, to be honest. And when you think about it, it's not an easy task, because you have to go through hundreds, maybe thousands of permutation, because the game has to play with different levels, right? The first one is what level you want. Do you want the recommended level? Do you want more towards quality, more towards performance? So it has to change everything based on that, but also has to change everything based on the resolution you have chosen, and also on the GPU you have, because all the options are not just set for whatever, it's not the equal for everything. So in my 4090, even if I'm not showing it in this video, the options it chooses depending on the resolutions are completely different to the options it's choosing on the 4060, which is the one I have set here. So the way I think this works, I don't think this is using AI, at least not yet, and not locally, obviously. But I think probably NVIDIA is using some sort right now of AI. Well, this is very also, it's not necessarily that it's using AI ever since, but what I'm trying to say is that it's probably using some sort of weight system. That's the right word. So what I mean is that they add a weight, depending on the type of effect for the game. Like for example, shadows weight 10%, occlusion weights 5%. So the more the weight, it means it's more heavy on the GPU. But then they have to provide the GPU with certain value, like okay, the 4090 value, the value is 1000. So you start playing with the values, all right, and you sort of, okay, if you choose 4K, then you're already using like, I don't know, 500 points out of the 1000 that the 4090 has. So depending on the other values that each one of the effects has, then he has to play with those values. So there is a lot of permutations and calculation he has to do. So it's clear that something can go wrong. But from my point of view, the end result was quite good. As we saw, all the games had this ceiling of 60 FPS that they maintained throughout, no matter what sort of thing we throw. Even on Black Myth Wukong, we throw this just 4K thing just for the sake of it, and it ran much better than I was expecting. So it was able to choose even in like a crazy out of place resolution for the game. From my point of view, was still able to choose like proper options, trying to maintain quality, because I don't remember that it chose ultra performance on any of them. Maybe on the Black Myth Wukong 4K, maybe, but I don't think it did. So that means that it's trying to keep quality but also frame rate. So that's why it's saying that it is a balance. Maybe we went more overboard towards more performance in the scale, it will have used ultra performance. It used frame generation on every opportunity it could, but I think the reason for that is to try to keep other settings as high as possible while maintaining good frame rate. So it's trying to give you a good experience, graphically speaking, like giving you the best graphic possible while maintaining frame rate. Even though some of the options to me were, maybe I would have chosen something different, but that's because I like to, play with the settings. The whole point of this is made especially for those people who are afraid of PC gaming and are afraid of choosing their own settings. And that's one of the things that they always say, I don't like PC gaming because I don't want to mess with the settings. I think this is a great option because, as we have seen, it does work and it works really well. So if you're one of those persons who is always afraid of PC because, oh my god, I have to choose, I have to change, I have to do that, then I think NVIDIA Optimizer is actually quite a good option because it's going to make your life easier. So and choosing, like, I think sensitive values depending on what you want and how you want to play. I tested every game at 1440p, even when most people are always telling me that's a 1080p GPU, because I wanted to take it, like a step above, a step beyond, like forcing. So the NVIDIA the optimizer had to take really serious decisions, and then I pushed one up to 4K. Obviously at 1080p things will have been much easier. Well, but as you can see, the end result from my point of view were very, very positive. So if you are afraid of, having to deal with that, this is a quite easy option for you to just set up your game exactly right, like 60 FPS or better quality at whatever resolution is that you are looking to play on whatever NVIDIA GPU you are using, because I think it honestly works very, very well. So as always, I hope you like this video and see you on the next one.